I printed. No, I 3D printed a real shoe. I've never made shoes before, so this is a huge experiment. I'll be testing it on me, with the ultimate challenge being making a fully functional barefoot shoe for my boy. When you build something yourself, you think very differently about it. You question every detail, and this time I'm designing something he'll wear every single day. Shoes. Now this didn't start with him, it started with me. I didn't begin gymnastics early, I actually started later than most. But when I got into it in secondary school, I went all in. We're talking cartwheels, flips, trampoline jumps almost 2 stories high. And of course, it came with injuries. Sprained ankles, a ton of them. On top of that, I've had collapsed arches since young. I've had bunions. Inherited? Perhaps. My mum did have to fly to the States for bunion surgery. For me, standard shoes just never felt quite right. Arch supports gave me aches, structured shoes felt restrictive. Then one day in high school, I fell on the trampoline and fully busted up my ankle. Then I fractured again during the obstacle course in army, which ended it in bone spurs and a surgery. And after that, it all never felt quite right ever. It never fixed, and my ankle doesn't even bend properly anymore. Now, as a chiropractor, and I dare say I understand biomechanics a bit better, intrinsic foot muscles, toe control, the way the joints work together, the foot just isn't meant to be locked up. It's meant to adapt, and when we weaken them early in life, we pay for it much later. Well, I sure did. And here's something I see all the time in my clinic. Kids, we're talking very young kids, walking around in these giant hard-soled shoes, almost clown shoes if you get my drift. Thick soles, stiff bases with almost no flex. Sometimes I'll take the shoe and try to bend it, and it barely moves. And if you watch these kids try to walk, they kinda just waddle, because they honestly can't feel the ground and there's no feedback. When you remove the feedback, you remove learning. It's not the kid's fault. It's not even the parents' fault. It's just how most shoes are designed. Now, I have a son. And I don't want him waddling about in mini clown shoes. We've bought him barefoot shoes, specifically Vivo barefoot shoes. They're great. He loves them. They're flexible, they've got wide toe boxes, they've got zero drop. But kids outgrow shoes so fast, and they cost an arm and a foot. So I thought, why not design it myself? Before designing from scratch, I needed to understand the material. So I downloaded a ready-made shoe model from Maker World and hit print. Not my design, just a test really, and interestingly it used different amounts of infill in creating the cushioning in the insole, which sounds cool and honestly would be really comfortable. But that's not what barefoot shoes are meant to do. It isn't about the soft padding, it's about ground feedback. So already I knew this isn't going to be my end goal, but hey, it's a starting point. Printing TPU itself is a bit of a headache. It's super water absorbent in the sense that it wicks up the humidity and prints super unevenly when it does, especially when it's above 80% humidity here in Singapore. So I had to feed it directly from my AMS HT, heat it, and that way the filament stays somewhat dry. I had to DIY a setup, feeding it through a homemade pulley bearing system to smooth the feed, as flexible filament just somehow finds a way to expose every weakness in the setup. If you've dealt with printing TPU in high humidity and you've got a better solution, let me know in the comments, as I'm keen to get better at working with TPU. Alright, print is done, and honestly it's flexible, really flexible. The cushioning infill works, but that's the problem. It's super cushioned as a sneaker and I can't feel the floor. Unfortunately, comfort and function aren't quite the same thing. So at this stage, I had to decide between tweaking this design or starting from scratch, because I'm really after a barefoot shoe, not a nice squishy one. It's about being connected to the ground and getting a feel of the floor, letting the foot do work, which meant back to a drawing board. This is when I realized most 3D printed shoes have a certain look. You almost can tell straight away it's very one piece, it's very plastic, it's very 3D printed. Traditional shoes are made from layers of fabric and apparently designed quite differently. So that's where I started, maybe break it into parts and work it like I would a normal shoe. Perhaps this way I would also eliminate issues that come from TPU printing, such as all the extra stringing and filament that just messes up the finish. But more importantly, maybe I'd be able to print something I actually want to wear. Not just something I printed, but something I'm proud of. Here's the thing, I've never made a shoe before, and so I did what any completely unqualified person would do. I wrapped my foot in cling wrap, and I covered it in masking tape, and made some sort of a foot shell. Cut it off, and now I'm holding this weird hollow version of my foot, which feels pretty strange. From here, I 3D scanned it and then brought it into Blender and designed a sole around it, trying to follow my foot shape while still making it functional. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to really design for a wider toe box, so I just made it, well, wide. This took me on the journey of printing a couple of models, which some were very clown shoe-like, some were just too big. Now, I could have saved myself some trouble and just bought a model online, but I wanted to see how each factor affected the last, so I decided to DIY it. Now, I printed the sole, cut the tape shell into patterns, and once again scanned it and designed the upper. I wanted it to look kind of cool, maybe Converse style, and added a little bit of customization, my Level Up Papa logo. And for the bottom of the sole, we needed some pattern, some grooves for grip. So I added in some of this electrical style pattern, just something different. Though honestly, no one's ever gonna see it. Now this was my first real attempt, and you can tell it's far from perfect. Proportions are a bit off, and honestly some areas needed to account for a little bit more flex to allow for better movement. But it's a great starting point, and I've learned a ton that I can apply to my son's shoes. If you want to see how it all ties together to make a toddler barefoot shoe, stay tuned, it's in the works. I can't undo my bunions and I can't undo my bone spurs, but I can influence his foundation. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. Every bit genuinely helps us grow, and it lets me keep building things for my son. This is part 1, so let's level up together. Bye bye.